All right, so let's go through some examples of redirecting, right? And so think of these as situations that you come up with during phone prospecting attempts. So the objection listed here is, what is this in regards to, and is this a sales call? Now, these are very common objections that gatekeepers will give you, and you can also get these from the target prospect as well. These objections are what I would refer to as screening objections. They're really looking for you to say something that identifies you as a salesperson. That way they can know, okay, I need to get rid of this person. What is this in regards to is one of a gatekeeper's favorite questions to ask. And so what you don't want to do is, I guess, like the comply response to these would be to say, well, either yes, this is a sales call, or to say, well, I'm calling to schedule a meeting, I'm calling to have an introductory conversation. Anything that basically actually kind of says what you're calling to do would most likely is going to be complying with this objection. So we don't want to do that, and we don't want to do that because it basically alerts, get rid of me. But now, so you might say, well, if without looking at this slide and without talking about this, if I were to tell you not to say that, you might say, well, what should I say? I don't want to lie. I don't want to say, no, I'm calling to ask about an invoice, and then it ends up being a sales call, right? So, but what we do is we redirect to our value statement, and your value statement is a one-sentence statement that communicates the value that you offer. So an example of a response to what is this in regards to is I might say something like, hey, well, yeah, the reason why I'm reaching out is we actually work with chemical companies, and we help them to improve their inventory turnover by 20 to 25%. And I'll just stop. I'll just stop talking. Now, that technically, like if a gatekeeper asks you what is this in regards to, that doesn't necessarily answer their question, but they're not going to call you out on that. They're not going to say, and why, you know, it's almost like a curveball. The gatekeeper, they're not going to ask you what to further. They might ask you another question, but they're not going to, you know, be puzzled why you did not kind of give them what they're looking for. What they're also not going to do is they're not going to flip that switch that automatically, it's basically like the eject button. Like if you think about a James Bond car with the button that you push and the passenger seat flies out the roof of the car. They're not going to push that because they're not going to know to. It's almost like you're answering them with something that they're not prepared for. So they're either going to ask you another question, which helps you to reach your goal of keeping the call going, or they're going to say, okay, well, hang on just one moment. And that happens all the time. So there's an example of redirecting with your value statement. You can also redirect to your pre-qualifying questions. So the same response we can use here to 4 different, or maybe even more, different objections. So the objection of, I'm not interested, we're not looking to make any changes right now, we do not have any budget or money to spend, call me back in X months or weeks or whatever. These are basically kind of, you know, blow off, these are all kind of I'm not interested category type of objections. Now the overcome here would be to try to sell more, right? Oh, well, you know, to try to make the person interested. Oh, well, but we have a guarantee, a lifetime guarantee, and you know, how important is that to you? Do you want a lifetime guarantee, right? So that's trying to overcome. Again, we don't want to do that during that initial contact. So what we do is we redirect to your pre-qualifying question. So that might sound something like this. Hey, yeah, you know, I understand, but if I could ask you real quick, are you currently using any automation tools to manage your inventory levels? And at this point, most likely, I mean, there's a 90% chance that the prospect is going to answer that question. And then what you've done is you've gotten away from them saying, I'm not interested. Now another version of that, and this adds kind of a diffuse statement, and you could add this in depending on your personal style or or it adds another sentence, so depending on how much time you feel like you have to work with. But you could say something like, oh yeah, I understand, and hey, Bob, listen, I want you to know, I'm not calling you to try to sell you anything or sign you up at this point. But if I could ask you real quick, are you currently using any automation tools to manage your inventory levels? Now, what I want to point out, when you ask this question, most likely they're going to answer the question. And so what you can then do is you can then follow that up with another question, or they may give you an answer that allows you to go for the close. Let's say that we have a saying that we use called a ding 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 answer, or a ding 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 moment, kind of like when you hit the jackpot at a casino. And so if you get the ding 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 answer to this question, you could go for the close. So they might say something like, oh yeah, no, we don't use any automation tools. Oh, well, that's why I'm reaching out, because we actually work with companies and we help them. And so you start to talk about yourself, and then you go for the close. So there's a lot of different directions you can go, but the key thing again is you're getting away from the objection, you're redirecting, and you're getting the light shined off of that position. You can also redirect to common pain points. So if we look at those exact same objections, another direction to go is to say something like, oh yeah, I understand, Bob, but listen, when I actually talk with other manufacturing companies, they often express challenges with it taking too long to process orders, and that there are sometimes errors in their orders. Do you ever see any of that, or can you relate to any of that? Are you concerned by any of those? So what I just did there is, in that sentence there's two different pain points. It taking a long time to process orders and errors in the orders. So he's saying we're fine. I'm giving him some problems and seeing if he has those. So another way to respond. Now, another objection that comes up a lot is just send me your information. Now, prospects love this one because one is, a lot of prospects don't enjoy being a bad guy. They don't want to hang up on you. So the just send me some information objection is really popular because it's for two reasons. One is it's extremely effective at getting rid of salespeople because there's a glimmer of hope. A salesperson is getting shot down, and then someone says send them your information. So it's really effective. The other reason is a prospect can get rid of you without breaking your heart and without sounding like a jerk. So it's really common. Maybe you've come across this one before. What you don't want to do, especially just at the first time you hear just send me some information, is to end the call and to spend 20 minutes crafting your long email with all your information and then sending it to a prospect which they're going to delete unread. Total waste of time, and that's the ultimate worst way you can go. The other thing is I want to point out this objection can actually come up at two different times. If it happens really at the beginning of a cold call, where you've barely had a conversation, they don't really know much about you, and they're saying, hey, just send me your information, they're blowing you off. And so the response that I like to use for that is something like this. Hey, yeah, sure, I'll definitely send you some information. So I know exactly what to send you. Do you mind if I ask you real quick, are you currently using any automation tools to manage your inventory levels? So right there, that's a redirect to one of your pre-qualifying questions. Again, you would insert your pre-qualifying question instead of the question that I'm talking about, inventory levels. That's just an example if that wasn't clear. The other thing is that if you don't know what your pre-qualifying questions are, or what the questions that you should be redirecting to are, that's something that we actually help with as well at SalesScripter. Be sure to check out some of our videos on YouTube, and the SalesScripter tool software will actually help you to develop the optimum list of pre-qualifying questions for each product that you sell and for each audience that you communicate to. When you change the audience, the product you sell may stay the same, but when you go from selling from one industry to another, or one department to another, one size of business to another, sometimes your pre-qualifying questions should actually change, or they could be changed to really operate at a high level. So Sales Scripter can help you with that. But the point here on this to this objection is, yeah, of course you can redirect your pre-qualifying question for this also. If you haven't noticed to see a pattern so far, even knowing we're dealing with different objections and there's 10 of them, most of them go back to the same exact place. So we don't have to, our objection responses, we don't have to come up with 10 different responses. We just need to know where they all redirect to, and most of them kind of go back to the same place. And it's not, and it's already these questions should be maybe in your cold call script, even that you get to, even if you don't have to face an objection. So not only do the objections go back to the same place, but the call script and the objections go to the same place. So we're not giving you a whole lot to really memorize and understand here. I mentioned that the just send me information can come up a couple different times. It can also come up at the end of a call, right? Let's say you've talked to a prospect for 2, 5, 6, maybe even a little bit longer minutes, and then you go for the close and they won't commit to a meeting. I mean, at this point, you've kind of maybe asked them some questions, you've talked a little bit about yourself, and they're still not willing to take a meeting. This is less of a blow-off and more of a, that they're kind of non-committal. They're not ready to commit to that next step in your sales process. So you could either, this would be maybe an okay time to comply or maybe put together that email with your information. But if you want to give it one last try to kind of close for the next step, you could say something like this: hey, sure, I definitely can. Actually, there's a lot of information that I could send you. I might not know. You might need to tell me where to send the truck. That's kind of a joke, and it's not actually on this slide. But actually, there's a lot of information I could send over to you. But Bob, if you have some questions in particular about anything, to be honest with you, it might be easier and quicker just to have a brief call to go through your questions, to talk about what you're wanting to see information on, and I can explain it to you or show you that exact information, and we can schedule that for another day instead of me sending over a bunch of information that you would either have to go through or might not make a lot of sense for you all at once. Are you sure we can't put a call on the schedule for next week? So that's sort of a redirect back to a close. Kind of an overcome, actually, there, an overcome attempt. Sometimes you want to redirect to direct questions, which and this could be used for the we already used somebody for that. Now, I mean, if somebody says we already used somebody for that, you could actually still redirect to your pre-qualifying questions, because that still might be a productive conversation. They say we already used somebody. Oh yeah, well, how concerned are you about this? And so you have some different pre-qualifying question, which not only gets away from the objection, it gets away from the discussion of the competitor. You can do that, but sometimes you want to just kind of hit that dead on. And again, we're not trying to get them to change who they're using. So we might respond with something like this. So they say, "Oh yeah, we use Tiger Tech for that." Oh, good. Hey, how long have you been working with them? And then they might answer that. How's everything going? Hey, what product of theirs are you using? What do you like about them? Is there anything you need that they aren't able to provide? Is there any functionality that you need that isn't in their system? And so there you could do this on a cold call, and it's not necessarily trying to overcome. You're not trying to say, oh, they're no good, you got to check us out, right? To talk about you and sell you over the competition would be trying to overcome. But you are sort of redirecting to direct questions that ask about the competition. Another thing that I sometimes say when the competition comes up is, hey, that's great, and I'm not calling you to try to get you to make any changes right now and to switch over. I'm just more wanting to open the dialogue. And so that open the dialogue language that I was just referring to is displayed on this slide here. So I'll just flip to this next objection because you'll kind of see how that sounds here. But we're not looking to make any changes right now. So that's actually kind of similar to we already use somebody. We're not looking to switch providers right now. So a response to that could be something like, hey, I understand, and I want you to know we're not trying to sell you anything at this point, and I don't even know if we're a good fit. What you could insert there is, we're not trying, if they say they're already used somebody, you could say, and I'm not trying to get you guys to make a change or switch over to us. You know, I mean, really, honestly, our goal really at this point is to simply open the dialogue between our two companies, so that if you reach a point where you are ready and looking to make a change, you will know who we are and you'll know what we have to offer. And so we, just looking back at the text here, actually what I might say before that last sentence there where you kind of go for the close is something like, and that way you'll know who we are and what we have to offer. That way, you know, when you do reach it, when you are looking to make a change, you can reach back out to us. And so if we could put a brief 15-20 minute call on the calendar next Tuesday or Thursday afternoon, it would be, you know, even knowing we're not expecting you guys to make a change, it would be really productive for us to learn more about you, what you're doing, and share a little information about us. Does that sound like something we can do? So again, one thing I want to point out, you know, going back to an objection that we face in that people say scripts aren't good. If you notice, I did not read verbatim what was on the screen when I was giving that example to you. And that's how I recommend people use scripts. You use it as a guide. You use it instead of just having a blank screen in front of you, or just, you know, going through all the thoughts in your head. You use it as a guide, and you use your own words and your own personal style, and you kind of fill in the blanks. And so that's how we teach people to use scripts, more less as something you read from and sound like a robot. So I would encourage you, if you use any of these responses, to do that yourself as well. You use your own personal style. Even knowing I wrote this, even when I read it out to you, I still add a little bit more inflection and a word here and there. Moving on to the next objection, we don't have any budget or money to spend right now. So that's something that can come up often. If that comes up early in a call, you could respond to, and I think we actually listed that earlier, where you could redirect one of your pre-qualifying questions. So you're just trying to get away from the mention of money. But let's say you've gone through your call, you've asked them a bunch of questions, you go for the close, and they say, you know what, it won't make any sense for us to get together because we don't have any budget this year. I mean, I hear that all the time. And it's realistic, right? I mean, they think they're not trying to be a jerk. They know you're a salesperson, and they don't want to waste your time, so they tell you, you know, and it's the truth, right? I mean, most of the time, if you reach out to someone for the first time, they weren't planning to meet with you or to talk to you or to look at your product, so it's very common that they don't have budget in the year that you're calling them or whatever. That's very realistic, and in their mind, they're thinking, I don't want to waste this guy's time. And what you kind of need to educate them on is that, yes, so if they could need what you have, but they don't have money, they are pre-qualified. But if they don't have budget to spend, they're not fully qualified. So what that means to you is that they are worth you spending 15 to 20 minutes of your time for a meeting or an appointment, but what they might not be worth is you putting together a proposal or a demonstration or flying out for a presentation or whatnot. So you need to educate them on that. So a response that I sometimes say is, hey, I understand, and I want you to know we're not trying to sell you anything at this point, so it's okay that you don't have budget to spend. Really, I'm reaching out to you to kind of establish a dialogue and conversation between our two companies, so that when you reach a point where the budget is available, you'll know what we have to offer, and then you can reach back out to us, or I might check back in with you down the road, and then we can pick up where we left off. I respect that you're not going to be wasting our time, but since you don't have budget to spend, just to learn a little bit more about you, to share a little bit of information about us, we'll be productive if we just do that, and then we can kind of plant the seed so that when things change on your side, we can be more productive. That would be a very good use of our time. So even with us knowing that you don't have any budget, what do you think about putting 15 to 20 minutes on the calendar next Tuesday or Thursday afternoon? So that's sort of the education of it's okay, and to try to get around the budget or money objection.